chapter 1, verses 16 through 20. One day, as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, "Come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people." And they left their nets at once and followed him. A little further up the shore, Jesus saw Zebedee's sons, James and John, in a boat repairing their nets. He called them at once, and they also followed him, leaving their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Come, follow me. That was what Jesus said to the first disciples. How many of you remember where you were, what you were doing, who you were with on 9/11? See, everybody raised their hand. And that's how ingrained it is in our memories. All I said was 9/11. I didn't even have to say, where were you on September 11th, 2001, when 2 planes crashed into the 2 Twin Towers? But you knew what I meant. And it was more than 17 years ago, but you knew exactly what I meant. Most of us remember. Some of you may even remember where you were, what you were doing, who you were with when JFK was assassinated. See, those negative events that change the course of human history have a way of ingraining themselves in our brains. And positive events can have the same effect, but they're not as potent. They don't stick in there quite as much. But even still, I remember the day each of my children were born. I remember the day I got married. How many of you remember where you were, who you were with, what you were doing when you first heard Jesus' invitation to you? Jesus invites us all to belong to his body, to join God's life-giving mission. And though each of our invitations, each of the circumstances surrounding those invitations might be different, the invitation is the same for each and every one of us. Come, follow me. It was the same for John Wesley. It was the same for all the saints who have gone before us. Come, follow me. And the best part is that Jesus meets us where we are, and he extends that invitation. He didn't sit in the temple waiting on Simon and Andrew to come in and then to say, "Hey, follow me." He went out to the seashore because he knew that's where they would be. And he called out to them there, where they were, and said, "Come, follow me." They were fishermen. He went to them and extended his invitation. And if you've ever had the thought, I've got to get this part of my life right, and then I can follow Jesus. That isn't how it works, because Jesus comes to them. Jesus comes to each and every one of us. He meets each and every one of us where we are and extends his invitation. Come, follow me. I can tell you right now that I personally don't feel very qualified to lead a congregation, to shepherd God's people. But the amazing thing is that God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Paul wrote to the Corinthians that God chose the things that this world considers foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise. And he chose things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful. Jesus comes to us where we are, at our worst, at our best, and he extends his invitation. Come, follow me. That's his simple invitation. In those days, each and every one of the Jewish boys would get the same education in the temple. And then when they were around 12 or 13, the rabbi would choose the best of the best, the smartest of the young boys that he'd been teaching. And he would say to them, come, follow me. And then to the rest of them, he would say, go and learn your father's trade. And that's what Simon and Andrew had been told. Go and learn your father's trade. That's what James and John had been told. Go and learn your father's trade. They were in the boat with their father, Zebedee. Their dad was a fisherman. They were fishermen. But for the ones who were called to follow, they would follow the rabbi wherever he went. They would get up in the morning when he got up in the morning. They would eat their meals when he ate his meals. They would go to bed when he went to bed. They would travel where he traveled. Legend goes that they would go so far as if the rabbi stubbed his toe and then he was holding onto it and hopping around on one foot, the young boys would hop around on one foot behind him. They literally followed in his footsteps. They did every single thing that he did. How many of you have seen the movie Forrest Gump? Now, Randy loves my Forrest Gump impersonations. But do you remember the drill sergeant scene? Where the drill sergeant gets this close to Forrest Gump's face, and he screams at him, Gump, what is your sole purpose in this army? And Forrest Gump says, to do whatever you tell me, drill sergeant. Jesus probably isn't going to yell at you or make you do push-ups or berate you when you screw up. Though for some of us, it might actually help us keep the discipline part of spiritual discipline. But that's probably not what Jesus is going to do. Jesus' call is a little different. It's kind of like the end of the movie. How many of you seen the movie Men in Black? It's kind of like the end of the movie where Agent J says, you know what, Kay, we're really good partners. To which Agent K responds, I haven't been training a partner. I've been training a replacement. Jesus not only calls us to, he's not just calling us to wander around after him and to learn and to do the things he tells us to do. He's also calling us to come after him, to follow him in the sense that he followed John the Baptist. John chapter 1 verse 15 says, John testified about him when he shouted to the crowds, this is the one I was talking about when I said, someone is coming after me who is far greater than I am, for he existed long before me. Jesus followed John's ministry. Jesus wants us to share the good news with people. He wants us to follow him. Come, follow me. In every sense of the word. He wants us to come after him in time. He wants us to go or to come after him, to travel behind him, to do as he did. He wants us to act according to his commands. He wants us to pay close attention to him. He wants us to practice what we preach, to undertake, to carry out his instructions. In one simple word, follow. Come, follow me. That is Jesus' invitation to each and every one of us. And over the next several weeks, we're going to talk more and more about what it means to follow him, to be his disciple. Let us pray.